Hi children, this is the third video for the grade 7. So if you haven't followed my previous videos, please go and follow these videos. I have done a video series for grade 6 and this is the third video for the grade 7. Some of these content are like actually coming from grade 6 as well. So if you haven't followed grade 6 ICT like in a good way, better you have some idea from those videos first before jumping into this, right? So in this chapter we are going to talk about security of the computer system, right? So in the first picture itself, the teacher is asking how to protect the computer. So students are like giving a lot of solutions, like by locking the computer laboratory, by locking the system unit, like that. But there's a problem. Students are mainly focusing only about the physical security, right? We'll go and see, is it the only thing we should care? Okay, because computer is actually a collection of hardware and software components. So we should protect both, right? So let's see now. When you think about the security of a computer, right, you have to mainly think about the hardware security as well as the software security. So before going to the security, first you should know what is computer hardware. These things you have learned in the grade 6 also. So hardware is the physical components of a computer, right? That means what you can touch, tangible things, right? So we call tangible component of the computer as hardware, right? So definitely they have a shape you can touch, right? So can you give me some examples of that? So you can see here, right? Keyboard, mouse, monitor. When you take the system unit itself, and inside the system unit, do you have hard disk, RAM, cooling fan, DVD drive, motherboard, power supply, CPU, right? The processor. So all these components are hardware. Mic, speakers, right? Those are additional things. Now, if you think about portable hard disk, DVDs, CDs, the storage devices, all these things which you can touch can be considered as hardware. So any idea of the possible hardware security threats or issues you can have, right? For example, there can be a sudden flow of high voltage current, so all the devices can be burned, right? Similarly, suddenly there can be a power failure. So we should properly shut down your computer, right? If there's a sudden power failure, the computer will suddenly close off, and it's not good for, especially for the hard disk, right? So those kind of issues can be there. Overheat, right? Sometimes when the CPU is processing too hard for so much hours and all, it is generating so much heat. So that can be a problem, right? And dust, uh, particles and insects which can harm these hardware accessories. And there can be issues related to theft. That means people can steal, people can do various damages kind of thing for these physical components. So they are talking about different kind of precautionary methods to protect them, right? So first thing is about electricity. Now we talk about due to the high electricity voltage, these devices can be burned. It will do malfunctioning and all. So how to protect them? There are mainly three suggestions they are giving, right? So first one is using a UPS, right? Uninterrupted power supply. We talked about this in grade 6 also. So as I earlier told, if there's a sudden power failure, what happens is the computer is suddenly getting off and there's no proper shutdown. So it's not good for hard disks and all. So what happened is if you use a UPS, if there's a sudden power failure, UPS will help to continue your work, right, by supplying power for some time. Like it depends on the UPS, maybe 1 hour like that. So then you can do a proper shutdown, like a battery of a laptop, similar to that, right? So, but being a laptop, even the power goes off, with the laptop battery, you can survive, right? Similar to that, UPS will allow you to continue your work, even the power is not there. So it will be giving sufficient time to save your current work, especially for saving things, and then to do a proper shutdown. So it is really good to have a UPS with your desktop application, desktop machines, right? Second thing is they're suggesting to use a fuse, or these days we have mini circuit breakers, MCB, right? This is basically used to prevent damages due to the sudden flow of high voltage, right? So it will help without burning the devices. It will help you to prevent those damages. Next thing is again using surge protection, right? So it is also helping you to protect your computer from high voltage current and especially lightning as well, right? So it what it does is basically if the devices are getting a flow of high voltage current, it will send back to the earth, and rather than sending it to device and burning it, it will be redirecting it to the earth, right? Second thing is steps which we can take to avoid or to minimize overheating inside the computer, right? Usually, you may have seen most of these computer labs and especially IT related uh, professional bodies like officers are mainly air conditioned, right? So that is because of this overheat. Main reason was that initially from the beginning you may have seen even when I was at school, my in my school also we had air conditioned lab. I am talking about yeah, roughly more than 15 years back. Still, we had these computer labs with AC those days as well. So mainly because of this overheat, right? And second thing is you can fix cooling fans on the devices, right? So that heat inside these machines can be reduced, right? Next thing is about the physical harm, how to protect from physical harm. Like we learned about there was a separate chapter for computer laboratory in grade 6. So in that also we learned that we should keep our computer lab clean and tidy, and there are some ethics you should follow, kind of, right? So especially with the dust, moisture, and insects, we should be very careful, right? So here they have given some steps how we can protect. Now, for example, usually it's good to have air conditioned environment, and normally in schools they are not allowing you to wear footwear, right? They will ask you to remove the shoes when you're entering. That's mainly because of the dust particles, right? And avoid taking food drinks, right? Because if you spill them on your machine, it will destroy and damage the machine, right? And it is also preventing insects. If you put these food particles here and there, especially ants and all will come to eat that. So if you avoid food and drink inside the lab, it will prevent insects and rats also most probably coming into the place. And then you should keep your lab clean and tidy, and it's better to clean it regularly, right? Maybe there is a separate uh, cleaners for cleaning, or yourself you can clean your school lab especially, right? And make sure that computer lab you keep without moisture, especially with this kind, you can see in the picture also the some drinks or water has been spilled off. So avoid it, try to avoid it. Yeah. So again, they have mentioned the steps, right? So try to enter lab without footwear, because then your lab will be kept free of sand and dust, right? And always try to clean your computer accessories and all to avoid this dust gathering on these computer circuits, and avoid taking food, because it can, one thing, it can be spilling, and the second thing is it can attract different kind of insects there. And try to avoid the moisture in the lab, because it can short the circuits. If you put, or if you water is not good for electrical devices, right? Fourth thing, it's about theft. People coming and stealing your stuff, maybe at your home, maybe in your lab, right? So mainly one thing is you can have doors and you can lock them, right? And the windows and doors you can lock in such a way so people cannot come and steal your stuff. Second thing is, sometimes you may have seen even the system unit, they lock it, because then people cannot open it and remove things from there. Or you can use CCTV systems like CCTV cameras to monitor, and if some real theft happened, then you have some kind of evidence: who came, who entered, how they entered, kind of uh, evidence can be collected from CCTV cameras. But make sure, most of the places sometimes CCTV is not working at all, they just showing off. Sometimes even it is recording, the quality of the camera pictures, it will affect, right? Some people have CCTV cameras like for the sake of having it, but if actual theft happens, it's very hard to track it back because the pictures are not very clear. uh, Maybe very hard to recognize, the quality is not good. So there are so many problems like that. Just having CCTV cameras won't work. You should make sure that it is covering the particular area properly, and it is having good quality of capturing the images. Okay. Okay, so up to now we talked about the hardware and hardware security, but then we have to think about software components, right? So data and information in the computer and these programs are basically coming under computer software. We learned there are system software and application software as well. So mainly operating system we consider as a system software. We learned in the second chapter of grade 7 also about operating system. And then we have application software like these web browsers, word processing software, presentation uh, softwares, and like the kind of these spreadsheets, and uh, especially this video editing, audio editing, those all these softwares, games and all coming under application software. So here again, they are talking about different kind of threats or issues related to software, right? So natural disasters or terrorist attacks can harm your softwares, right? Not only software itself, even the physical system, hardware can be damaged from natural disasters. And second thing is unauthorized access. That means people will come and try to access your systems who are not authorized, right? And sometimes unexpected deletions or overwriting, and malware. We'll talk about malware, malicious software. And then sometimes complications can be in the operating system. It's not working properly as expected sometimes. And sudden power failures can also cause problems in your software, right? So again, they are talking about how to prevent, or what are the precautionary methods you can follow. First thing is about access, access issues, right? So how to control unauthorized access, right? Um, so physical security you can ensure by doors and locks, yes, right? Uh, Other than that, you should have a logical security. This is mainly achieved by passwords. We talked about passwords. We'll see here also we are discussing again about some things about passwords. Yeah. And then the protection of malware, for that you should have a antivirus software. We'll talk about malware also in this chapter. And about these power failures, natural disasters, sometimes operating system is not working at all, so you have to format the machine, right? And sometimes you delete or overwrite things unintentionally. So for these things, we should keep backups. So all these solutions we'll talk in detail later, right? Okay, so first thing is about protecting against malware, right? So malware uh, can be a great threat for your computer. So what is malware, right? Yeah, it's malicious software, right? So that is mainly man-made software or can be a part of the software which is functioning against the requirement of the user and the computer and causing a lot of damages to your computer, right? For example, it can like delete files, it can alter your files, it can capture sensitive data and will send it to another third party. So these kind of unintentional things, that means which are functions against the requirement of the computer user, uh, can be causing lot of damages to your softwares, to your data in your computer, and to your computer networks can be totally like disconnecting and all, right? And sometimes even the computer hardware can be damaged because of this malware. So you have to be very careful, right? So usually there are several types of malware. Like in your chapter, it's very small, only four actually mentioned, but there are so many types of malware. You can go and read these things. So they are actually in hybrid nature. What do you mean by hybrid nature? Means they are like sometimes working as a computer virus and harming your computer. But sometimes it's like a Trojan horse. I will explain what it is. Actually, Trojan, like a Trojan means it's kind of like a good program helping you, right? So it's in the hybrid nature. So sometimes it's very hard to identify what it is really, right? So there are different types of malware. So four have been given: virus, worms, Trojan horse, and spyware. So we'll see what these things are. So first thing is computer virus. Most probably you may have heard this word. In grade 6 also I explained this in brief, right? So a computer virus is a main malicious software. It will enter to your computer and uh, try to replace itself, right? It is designed in such a way that it can spread from computer to computer, especially through portable devices like USB drives and portable hard disks and all. So these viruses can delete, modify your data, can corrupt your software, right? So these harms can be done, right? So that's a computer virus. Second thing is computer worm, very similar to viruses, right? But the main difference is the worms like can spread across networks or even in the internet without any support of human or with any support of host program. So it can replicate itself. That's the main difference of a worm, right? Next thing is a Trojan horse. Actually, this term came because of the Trojan War. Actually, Greeks have been like fighting with uh, another city, a city of Troy, for about 10 years, but they couldn't win the war. So they have followed a very simple method of achieving this target. What they have done is, like you can see in the screen, they have built up a kind of a, as I remember, it's wooden horse. Not sure whether it's iron. Yeah, it's wooden horse as I remember. So they created a big wooden horse and they are very capable, some kind of a selected soldiers into the horse and send this horse to the city of Troy. And then the Greeks pretend that other Greeks were leaving the city. Say they sailed away. So actually, the citizens of the Troy thought this is kind of a victory. So they thought this is a symbol of victory. So they took this Trojan horse, took this horse and took to the city center. So in the night, what happened was when everybody is sleeping, the people inside the Trojan horse came outside and opened the gates for the other Greeks to come inside, and they have won the war, right? So it seems that Trojan word itself, now we use it in such a way that it seems doing good in appearance, but actually it is not, right? So Trojan horse in this malware context, what we talked is this is seems to be very useful software at first sight, but actually it is causing a lot of damages to the system, right? So actually this happened to me once. I downloaded some open source virus guard, and I can feel that the computer is malfunctioning, kind of, right? Then I use some kind of a Kaspersky or some kind of a good uh, antivirus program. Then actually that detect the earlier installed antivirus itself is a virus. So I was thinking it's a useful one. It's helping me to find the malware, but actually that particular uh, software itself is a malware, right? So that you have to be careful about that, right? So next comes the spyware, right? So a spy, you may have heard this English term, spy. Spy is actually collecting information of somebody and passing it to another one, right? So similarly, spyware is a malicious software which secretly collect the sensitive data of the person's computer, use internet usage, sometimes even the keystroke. Even each key you press can be captured and sent to a third party over the network, right? So, and these softwares will send them to the relevant party without the user doesn't know, right? So, you have to be very careful with your sensitive data and all. They will be stolen using the spyware, right? So, what are the damages can be happen, right? Already we discussed this, right? It can delete, hide, modify your existing data, right? And sometimes it can create unnecessary files and folders and try to use your memory capacity, right? If you can see this, if you have viruses, suddenly your C drive is getting now it's getting filled. You also don't know. Today you have maybe, I don't know, 20 GB left. Tomorrow it's only 10 GB. So like that, it will replicate itself and try to create new files in your system and try to reduce your memory capacity, right? Sometimes software itself can be deleted, malfunction, it's can be altered, right? And definitely the efficiency of your computer will reduce. It's like stucking and not performing well, and sudden shutdowns, sudden restarts can happen. So these things you have to be very careful. Things actually can be symptoms to you to identify, there's a virus in my computer, right? So very unusual behaviors of your computer network, sudden disconnection, malfunctioning. Sometimes it's very slow. The network is very slow, right? So these unusual behaviors also can be a symptoms, right? And as I earlier told, the capacity of your storage devices can be unusually reducing because the virus or the worms are replicating themselves and using your memory capacity, right? Okay, so these are the solutions, like precautionary actions you can take to prevent or to reduce the harm done by the malware, right? Main thing is you can install antivirus software and update it regularly, because updating is very important. You just installing it and expecting to everything will be expecting that everything will be fine won't work, because viruses, the people who do these things are daily updating and giving new uh, problems to the world. So you have to make sure you install antivirus software and you update it regularly. Then only it can capture new virus attacks, right? Second thing is, when you're using external storage devices, especially pen drives, portable hard disks, CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays, and all, when you inserting them, do a possible scanning, right, before you use it. Third thing is you have to install a firewall. A firewall will help you to protect mainly from the network related issues, right? And do the proper right settings. And when you're accessing internet, make sure you access very secure and very trustworthy sites, because sometimes I have seen a lot of advertising ads pop-ups are coming, and some people ask you to install different softwares. They will ask you to do different activities, right? Don't do those things. And they have told, especially don't open the blacklisted websites which are suggested by your antivirus program. Don't access them, right? And don't click these pop-ups and ads and all, because they will redirect to different pages, and they will cause you problems definitely, right? And especially when you're working with emails, always make sure that you don't open emails, suspicious ones. You don't know the sender. Sometimes there are so many promotional emails you will get. So don't open each and everything. Don't click the links they have. Don't open these attachments. So especially if you are working in a office. I know these videos are mainly for kids, but sometimes these are watched by adults also. So make sure at the offices and all don't open these suspicious emails, right? It will cause a lot of issues. And then usually maintain a limited user accounts, and for the user accounts also don't give so many privileges to access the root level things and all, because it then anybody can if somebody can impersonate that user account, they can do so many harm for your computer, right? And update all your softwares, install, like do the regular updates. Windows, if you're using the OS, also do the updates regularly, right? And last thing is very important. Usually in Sri Lanka we don't do sometimes. So use the original copy of the licensed softwares, right? Don't use the pirated ones. So I know a lot of people are using crack versions and all. So don't do it, because it can be a lead to spread malicious software and all, and you won't get the real protection sometimes, especially now if the Windows, if you use the original um, licensed software, more protection will be there from the OS itself, right? So it won't be there if you use a uh, pirated one, right? So next thing is about the backups, right? We learn for natural disasters and even unintentional deletions and alterations, and those problems can be avoided by keeping backups. What do you mean by backups? It's very simple thing. Even the term maybe look a bit like a jargon, but backups means you keep copies. You keep copies of your original work, right? Because then you can use that copied version when the original copy is misplaced or damaged or kind of like. Understood. You keep copies, but you have to make sure when you're keeping copies, are you doing it regularly? Otherwise, your copy may be outdated, right? So, are you doing it regular, daily, weekly, monthly, or each hour? Right? It depends on the importance of your content, right? So you can take copies to CDs, DVDs, drivers, external hard disks, and all those things you can do at home, but when now in our professional bodies we cannot take the content into CDs and keep the CDs. So what we are doing is, we at professional level, what we are doing is, we keep these copies in different locations, sometimes in a different country. Okay, so our, because all these data is very important, these customer related information, very um, have a lot of business value in it. So we cannot play with it. So we keep the backups sometimes in different servers in different countries. Countries also not sometimes nearby countries. We think about different zones. Now, Asian countries, we think about European countries like that. So we go and save it in UK maybe to make it. Then if you get some problem in the Asian countries, then at least your copies are safe, right? Understood. So that level of backups are doing in the real world, right? Next thing is the access control, right? So you have to make sure you have to give proper access, right? So because if unauthorized person come and access your computers and resources, it's not good. So for that you can use different methods, right? One thing is the using password. So I talked about this password. Don't use your name, your school as your password, right? Because it's very easy to guess. So when you're selecting a password, you have to make sure you have to use a very strong and difficult to guess passwords, right? Always it's recommended when you're using the password, you should use at least the length of 8 with letters, numbers, special symbols in it, right? So then it's very hard to guess, right? Don't use ABC 123. Those are very common passwords, easily anybody can guess. So you may have a problem if I use a very hard one, how to remember to write it down? No. I have seen some people are writing their passwords and keeping near the screen or the desktop or the near on your table. So don't, what's the point of using a password, right? Password is like a key to a door. So if you close the door and if you keep the key nearby, it's not going to work, right? So don't write the password and keep where everybody can see, right? So then there will be a problem. How can I remember the password? It's very hard to remember. So for that, I talked in grade 6 about these fast phrases. Like you can have a phrase which is very simple, and but inside you can use like for example, instead of O, you can use 0. For example, we'll think a very simple one. Take good morning as the first phrase. So that is going to be your password. So for good morning, so two O's, you can use zeros. So G can be capital. So see two zeros like that, you can have your password. Okay, I'm just giving example of fast phrase. So then it is easy to remember but hard to guess, right? So when you're using the passwords, you have to be really careful to use a correct password, and it is recommended not to use the same password for all. Some people are having one password, it's strong and good, but they're using it everywhere. So if you put it to a some kind of a um, like wrong place, if you sit in the wrong website or something, then it's kind of a leakage, right? So then all your other emails and Facebook and all other social network accounts and all, they can access it from it because you have used same password. So try to use different kind of passwords for different applications, right? Okay, second thing is creation of suitable accounts. I told you earlier also, when you create user accounts, don't give admin privileges for everybody, right? You can manage it. You can have only one admin account and give uh, reduced privileges for the other user accounts. So then people who access from these user accounts don't have permission to do permission to access root level things, right? So they cannot do a lot of harm then for the computer system. Next thing is encryption. New word, maybe. Yeah. So encryption is another way to protect data, right? So what is actually happening in encryption is, I will quickly explain this. So these things are like introductory level. Don't worry too much. You are in grade 7, right? Learn these terms. Definitely, same encryption will be taught to at O levels as well. So I'm giving some kind of a background idea. So it is not a jargon then for you. But don't worry too much. In your book, it's just there what they're telling is it's a way of protecting data. And when you encrypt something, right, it is not easily readable, right? I will explain it. So if somebody, actually wrong people, if they get this content, it's very hard to read it. So then what will happen is this sensitive data is some kind of protected. If you have read Sherlock Holmes books, right? This picture is very familiar for you, hopefully, right? This is actually in one of the books. I don't exactly remember the story, but I remember this picture, and uh, one of the people in there, they got this message. They get some kind of a dancing cipher. Okay, so there are some dancers in there, right? So the person who got the message, they don't understand it, what it is, right? So then finally Sherlock Holmes were able to decrypt this. So understood? So encryption means you have a plain text. Like for example, I'm coming home. So that's a plain text anybody can understand. Now in this picture, you can understand what is really happening. So in the plain text, if you encrypt, you will get ciphertext. And if you decrypt, you will get again the plain text. So Sherlock Holmes is the one who look at these dances, and what he do is he based on the frequency of usage of the picture. Like for example, letter E usually used in a lot of places, right? Normally A, E, those are very common letters. So based on that frequency, he identified what each dance is representing. Um, for the letter, and he finally able to crack the message. So that is basically encryption and decryption, right? I will tell another example. This Caesar had used this. Now you can see another method of encryption. This is a very simple way of encrypting, very popular in cryptography. What here happening is, actually Caesar, what he used is, instead of letter A, he always used 3 letters back. That means instead of A, he always used D. Instead of B, he is always using E, like that. So the message you have initially, for example, if it is Apple, the first letter will be A. No? So you have to start the ciphertext with D. Understood? So the message you cannot read easily. So that is why even the Caesar in the real world, Caesar, you may have heard, he has used this encryption in his daily work, especially related to war-related things. So that is what encryption is. You also may be using this without knowing the word. Sometimes if parents see some kind of your message, you are encrypting it, kind of way, right? Sometimes your friends has your own words to communicate. Sometimes instead of letters, you can use numbers, like that. You can use different way of communicating. That is actually encryption. Not very big thing, but in computer world, we have a lot of algorithms, different kind of algorithms to achieve this purpose, right? Okay. So again, they are telling about physically how to protect the access. Right, we have talked about this. One thing is you keep your computer in a secure place, right, locked and all, and so on. Anyway, thieves and unauthorized people cannot access it. Then you can use CCTVs, alarms, and all, right? Okay. And next thing is very important, maybe new thing for you, biometric passwords, right? So biometric means you are using your like earlier the conventional way is using your password, or you can have access card to give the access, right? But biometric password is some kind of a modern thing. where you give the permission to access something based on your person's identity, like human, like for example, maybe a fingerprint may be recognized based on the voice, maybe based on the face, maybe based on the iris. That means in eye, it's very unique, like the fingerprint. So even nowadays, attendance all in offices are done using biometric passes. Right? People use the fingerprint because if it is a signature, people Horatson, they do it, right? Or if they have these access tags and all, the cards and all, what they do is they will give to a friend. Achan, please do it. Okay, please tap this. Okay, but if you use a biometric one, you cannot do like this. You cannot cut your finger and do like that. So you yourself has to go and punch your finger there. Okay. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 3. Bit long one. It's basically theoretical one. No, not much practical things were there. So in this chapter, we basically talked about security, hardware and software in both ways, right? So there can be a lot of security threats, issues, right? Uh, as we discussed. For example, sudden power failure, high voltages, overheating, dust, theft, kind of like that. So to protect them, we have uh, different precautions, hardware protection, right? Similarly, we had software security issues also. Malware, unauthorized access, sudden power failures can cause software issues, natural disasters, complication of OS, and unintentionally you delete something. Okay, so these software security issues also can be prevent or minimize using different precautionary methods like antivirus. You keep backups, you have some kind of access control, right? By physically as well as logically you can access the control. Okay, so all these things are related to computer security, right? Okay, so that's the end of the chapter. So hopefully you got a lot of new things here, encryption, malware, and all these new terms. Yeah, thank you for being with us. So if you haven't still subscribed my channel, please subscribe it. And if you have already subscribed, please press the notification, the bell icon, so you will get all these notifications. And please do comment. If you have any issues, if you have any questions, if it's something is not clear, please do comment so I can answer your questions. I'm doing it regularly. Okay, so thank you. Please be with us via ICT learning platform.